Hi, this is Vieri De Bitchtits, and I will be doing a sort of straightforward reading of the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure light novel called Over Heaven. This translation was provided by Cool0210, and before I get to the recording, I actually want to say that I had gone through this and I edited the piece so that it was a little more easier for me to say because I have trouble saying things a lot. So, mm. Well, I hope you enjoy, and let me know if there are any sort of improvements that I could make. If I said that I didn't have any indecision about restoring and deciphering the notebook that Mr. Jotaro Kujo incinerated in Egypt, I would without a doubt be lying. Because I felt that to bring those contents that Mr. Kujo saw as too unsavory to leave in this world back into it, it was on a level of professional and perhaps on a more fundamental level an unforgivable act. But at the end of a series of twists and turns, the reason I finally arrived at accepting the request from the Speedwagon Foundation was, of course, related to Mr. Kujo's current memory loss and comatose state. The Speedwagon Foundation's theory that there may be some hint in the notebook that leads to the restoration of Mr. Kujo's consciousness was at the very least not entirely incorrect. When I was told that, as someone who owes a great deal to Mr. Kujo, I was not in much of a position to preach about policy, professional ethics, or simple common sense as a human being, even if it did not yield any hints to his restoration, in order to even decipher a part of what caused Mr. Kujo to end up in such a state. I will overcome innumerable difficulties to restore that notebook. However, if I were to say that it was the only reason I agreed to decipher the notebook, it would also be a big lie. Truth be told, the first time I spoke with the Speedwagon Foundation, in other words, when I first learned that such a notebook even existed, I must confess, I succumbed to sweet temptation. I feel strongly that it was something I shouldn't do, but at least to an equal degree, it was something I felt compelled to do. The man who once tried to plunge the world into darkness, Dio Brando. No, maybe it would be more appropriate to call him Dio Joestar. Or, or perhaps simply Dio was best. At any rate, when learning of the existence of a notebook that a vampire who may have transcended humanity recorded his goals, there is no researcher who would not be excited. If I was to speak without fear of being mistaken, I would not be doing scholarly work with a moral conscience at the forefront of my mind. Mr. Kojo had burned it, and even the Speedwagon Foundation treated its existence as a third-class top secret. In other words, to restore and interpret a notebook that was being treated with such secrecy, I could not jump at the challenge. The vampire had such an intense charisma that would lure people into doing evil, and that he used it to entice his many subordinates. The man who was described as evil incarnate, the man who was still left at such a large effect even after his own death? How could I not want to know just what he thought, what he planned, and how he lived? I can't make excuses. Nice sounding excuses that like for the sake of Mr. Kujo over for the sake of world peace. I felt that if I didn't say that, I would not be fair, as the person has the right to be the first one to read the notebook. If I am writing about fairness, then I should mention that deciphering this notebook was an intensely difficult task. While naturally turning the fragments of a notebook that was burned and turned into mostly ash, even Mr. Josuke Higashikata could not restore it completely into readable text. As difficult enough as it was on its own, it was highly encoded and made unclear. Most of the proper nouns, which were keys, were replaced by checking against my deciphering results and the facts that we had currently verified. Therefore, I think it's gotten considerably easier to read, but I can't deny the sense that I've left some nonsensical patchwork. And those idiosyncrasies, main points, and the way to go to heaven that this Emperor of Evil was thinking of, unfortunately, are both so profound and difficult to understand that it's even harder for me, a specialist, to say that he has been able to fully understand them. Most of them are written in sort of a literal translation, therefore I have no choice but to leave the true deciphering up to the wise readers. One could say that my real work has only just begun. Of course, I will bear any responsibility for mistranslation in the document or contradictions that result from them. But I feel that I must first say that I disagree that there are any to be found. Holy fucking shit, that was rough.